Welcome to the Cute Dog Bible Study with Dr. Randy Ream, Senior Pastor of Stony Creek Church in Utica, Michigan, bringing you Lesson 7. Today's study is called House Trained. Our dog for this lesson is Benson Meringue, the house-trained hound at Nick and Mary Meringue's house. Every puppy needs to learn the house rules, what it can or cannot do, how to greet people, how not to harm the furniture, how to come, how to fetch, where to go for food and drink, and most of all, to learn to go potty outside. All of this is what we call house training. Good boy, Benson. Now, don't forget to go number 1. You are such a gentleman, Benson. Good boy. You say, okay, Randy, whatever, but what in the world does this have to do with a Bible study? Hey, let me assure you, as a pastor with a PhD in New Testament, the early Christians were house trained. We call this concept house churches. The very first church meetings took place in homes, not in church buildings. The first time the risen Jesus appeared to his gathered apostles, it was in a house on that first Easter Sunday evening when he showed them the wounds in his hands. It's likely this appearance is what started the practice of meeting on Sundays to worship and learn from the risen Jesus. It took place in a house. No, Benson, I don't know if there was a dog in that house, but if there was, I'm sure Jesus petted it. 7 weeks later, on the Jewish festival of Pentecost, the church was officially launched. 120 Jesus followers had gathered for prayer. The Holy Spirit came mightily upon the 120 Jesus followers, who all began to speak in languages they had never learned. Peter, the apostle, he delivered the first sermon ever preached in a church on a Sunday, and 3,000 people got saved and became Jesus followers. Where was this first church meeting held? Well, look what it says in Acts chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. It says, when the day of Pentecost came, and that, by the way, was also a Sunday, they were all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. Must have been a large house to hold 120 people. In Acts 1, we're told it was the upper room, maybe the same large upper room where Jesus shared his Last Supper with his apostles the night before he died. Either way, the first church meeting with the Holy Spirit filling all of God's people happened in a house, not an official building made to hold a church. Benson likes it. Luke tells us that the first Christians made a practice of meeting in 2 different kinds of settings. Notice, we look at chapter 2 of Acts, verses 46 and 47. It says they worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity. And all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Look at these 2 verses carefully. Note first, they held gatherings, A, in the temple courts to accommodate the large crowds, and B, in homes where they could fellowship in a more intimate gathering and share the Lord's Supper together. Outsiders, that is, unsaved neighbors and friends, witnessed the gatherings held in the public area of the temple courts. As a result, Luke says, many became Jesus followers, and the new followers kept joining the mushrooming Jesus movement every day. It was an amazing and exciting time, but it's also instructive for us. The early Christians held public meetings that must have been seeker-friendly because lost people were responding in droves. It wasn't because the church was watering down the message in order to not offend people or to get big crowds. No. Notice what it says in Acts chapter 5, verses 12 through 14. It says all the believers were meeting regularly at the temple in the area known as Solomon's Colonnade, but no one else dared join them, even though all the people held high regard for them. Yet more and more people believed and were brought to the Lord, crowds of both men and women. Notice it says these large gatherings in the temple that no one else dared join them there, even though the people held them in high regard. This tells us that the public saw the church as a no-nonsense group who meant what they said. You didn't join this group unless you were ready to surrender to Jesus and publicly identify with his people. It was not to be done on a whim. And yet, even so, many did indeed join because they liked what they saw in the people. They were watching these gatherings, and they must have seen Jesus in these people. At Stony, this is our goal with our Sunday church gatherings, to worship the Lord and present the truth in a straightforward, unfiltered manner, so that unchurched people who attend can witness the true, unadulterated message of following Jesus no matter what the cost. On the other hand, these more public meetings should present the truth of Jesus in a clear, understandable, and engaging manner, showing that everyone is welcome, everyone is loved, everyone is accepted as a friend. We're not a clique. Newcomers don't feel ignored or left out, but instead they're warmly welcomed and encouraged to connect with us. This is what we see going on in the early church, and it's our model for Stony. But as the church, the early church, grew and spread throughout the Roman Empire, the larger settings were not always available. In Jewish communities, Messianic Jews held meetings in synagogues. But in places where synagogues were not available for church meetings, Christians often had no large venues in which to meet. The main church building was the house of probably a Christian family who had a nice home where they can meet. Benson, that means you have to behave yourself. If you do a search in your concordance or Bible software program on the word house, you'll see several instances of house churches in the book of Acts and Paul's letters. If you were to attend one of these house church meetings back then, what would it be like? One text that's especially helpful is found in chapter 14 of 1 Corinthians, verse 46. It says, "Well, my brothers and sisters, let's summarize. When you meet together, one will sing, another will teach, another will tell some special revelation God has given, one will speak in tongues, and another will interpret what is said. but everything that is done must strengthen all of you. This fascinating verse gives us a window into a typical house church meeting in the Corinthian assembly. We might picture it like one of our small group meetings at Stony Creek. But notice what's going on. It's not just a Bible study or a prayer meeting. So much is happening here. Many are contributing. One might sing a song. Another teaches. Someone else shares something God has put on his or her heart. One person might exercise the gift of speaking in tongues, similar to what happened on that first day of Pentecost assembly when the Holy Spirit was poured out. Others in the house church interpreted what was spoken in tongues. And by the way, Paul says this is essential. If tongues are spoken out loud in a group, there must be an interpretation. What if we applied this in our small group meetings? Everyone comes with something to share. If your spiritual gift is, for example, encouragement, you could prepare to share something that would bless the other group members, especially those who might be discouraged. If your gift, on the other hand, is helps, you might prepare a salad or a dessert or use a skill you have to assist other group members. If your gift is creative communication, you might bring a song or a video you recorded. Or maybe God has blessed you with a revelatory gift in which he lays something on your heart or gives you a word of wisdom for the group. Maybe your prayer time could be led by a person with the gift of intercession or healing. How might your small group make constant use of the gifts God has given to its members? When we pull back to get a wider angle view of the activities of the New Testament house church, we see the house was sort of a one-stop shop for all the activities in the local church. Each church had leaders. They were called elders, and other leaders were called deacons who served the church. This situation lasted until the 4th century AD, meeting in homes, that is, when Christianity became legal at first and then the official religion of the empire. Christians could then freely construct church buildings, but before that, it was mainly the house church. Today, the house church movement in China has brought untold millions into the kingdom. The point for all of this is that though we're blessed at Stony Creek Church to have our own facility, our own building, it's not essential for the basic functioning of the church. Our small groups can and should function as mini church meetings where vital ministry happens. Benson can attend too in that case. In our culture, we typically think the larger church gatherings are the most important. A small group ministry, well, that's nice too, but it's usually not considered essential. But if persecution comes to America in our lifetime, small groups in homes may become the only meeting places. Folks, I believe that God is using this COVID-19 crisis quarantine to prompt us in several ways to optimize our small group ministry at Stony Creek Church. But will we respond to God's nudging? We need to move from being a church with small groups to a church of small groups. Soon we hope to be back meeting in our building, resuming our regular church services and activities. But let's not miss the opportunity to maximize our small groups. Here's what you can do. If you're not in a small group, why not join one? Go to mystonycreek.church, my.stonycreek.church to find a group to join. Some groups are meeting on Zoom, and you can participate even during the quarantine time. Next, pray about possibly leading a group. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you need to teach a Bible study. You only need the gift of administration or leadership, perhaps to facilitate others to do the leading of the study. Third, pray about hosting a group in your home. Maybe you're not the leader type, but you have a nice place where a group could meet. Next, contact Andy Barba. He's our small groups director. If you have any questions about joining, leading, or hosting a group. Well, that's our Cute Dog Bible study for this week. If you enjoyed it, please let me know and share it with someone else. Do you have a cute dog? Would you like your dog to appear on the Cute Dog Bible study? If so, here's what to do. First, send video clips of your cute dog to me via Facebook Messenger. That's the best way to do it. Secondly, make sure they're up close, individual action shots that last no longer than 5 seconds. Next, please tilt your phone on the side so we get a wide angle shot. And finally, please limit to 5 video clips per dog, along with several still shots. We need those as well. And finally, my disclaimer, I can't guarantee I'll use your stuff, but I'll do my best. Until next time, this is Randy Ream, pastor of Stony Creek Church, saying, God bless you and have a great week. Thank you.